Hello everyone, my name is Christian Cassidy. I am the expert in Group 3's presentation of the motor learning of the baseball pitch. Our novice was Dyron Brown and our observer was Trey Greenwood. So where we'd like to start is our baseball pitch analysis. So breaking down the throwing mechanics into individual movement goals is essential for teaching a novice a complex motion such as a pitch. So we broke ours down into the windup, which included a leg lift, load. We would look for hip loading and weight collection. Then stride A, stride B, which is kind of a two-step stride portion. So we had push off with hand separation. So you see a noticeable shift forward in the weight while foot is still in contact with the rubber or the ground. Stride B, which was front leg extension into foot strike. So foot plants and a change in direction occurs. Arm cock and acceleration. So trunk rotation, max external rotation of the shoulder and the arm, which I have a video. I'll show that next. And this change in direction is transferred to the torso, which leads to rotation of the torso in the direction change. So then finally you'll see max internal rotation on the arm, which again is that deceleration and follow through, and then body recoil where rotation continues after release. So here is my baseball pitch analysis. I actually had a task analysis conducted on my mechanics, and here's a video of that. So we see a leg lift with hip load. Boom. Start to see that weight shift and a push forward down the mound. Lead leg extends, got a nice foot strike, trunk rotation, arm lays back, boom. Arm deceleration with max internal rotation. So that was a pretty solid example in slow motion of our task analysis. So with foot strike, trunk rotation with arm, external rotation, boom, lay back with the torso, arm deceleration, max internal rotation. Perfect. All right. For our next slide, this is the task analysis we kind of butchered up to make it easier for Dyron, as well as us to give our ideas. So we had, again, that wind up, stride, arm cock, arm decel, acceleration, follow through. So here are some videos of Dyron throwing, actually, that we would like to show his progression using a task analysis. So he doesn't get much of a leg lift to start. So there's not much load here. You can kind of see it. Not a lot of torso rotation. Arm doesn't really lay back. Kind of just flicks it out there. It's not wrong. Again, this was, I think, one of his first 3 throws he threw with us. So happy for where we were. This led into, let's get back to here. This is one of his better throws. He started seeing some improvement. So you see that leg lift. So this is why I kept trying to, boom, leg lift, load, stride, foot contact, torso rotations. Look at that. He's already looking a lot better and using his natural athleticism here. We see a little more arm laid back, boom, slings it, and there's that body recoil we're looking for. And finally, with this video right here, this is my favorite video of Dyron's throwing. I thought it was his best. I got in the strike zone. I said, hit me as hard as you can. I was standing right behind the little 9 pocket. I'll show on a later slide. Boom. Almost smokes me. Great pitch. Well, again, much better mechanics, way cleaner. You can see the task analysis in his motion here. Boom. Good throw, Dyron. For our next one, we have our Gentiles taxonomy. So for object manipulation, we use stuff such as weighted balls, baseballs, and med balls. We also used a water ball, which is kind of a very sport-specific piece of equipment, which we'll show in a later slide. For our static movements, we had him just kind of get in position and not throw. Maybe go through a dry rep. For if he was having intertrial variability, we use weighted balls, or we use a water ball. Again, it kind of moves around with the water in it, so it perturbates him, makes him create a more robust throwing movement. If he's in motion, we had him go through a full pitching motion on flat ground. Then we introduced slope, and then we introduced med balls and like a med ball slam for the throw. So it kind of created a little more fluidity. So again, we were just trying to create an optimal position where he could get healthy failure to learn how to move a little better down the mound, which I thought he did a really amazing job with, and I think Trey would agree. So we chose our performance outcome measure as strike zone percentage, which is a reading of strikes in the zone per pitcher's thrown. So mechanics are kind of variable. So every pitcher kind of has his own way of throwing strikes. And I knew that for Dyron, you know, he's not going to move like I move. So we wanted to choose something that had his version of success as his own. Oops. So the more pitches he threw in the zone, the higher his percentage was, because strike zones don't change, even though mechanics do. And that's why we chose this performance outcome measure. So the areas of the brain activated during the pitch. So starts with the primary motor cortex, and this is our initiator for the movement. And then the somatosensory and supplementary, I apologize. The supplementary motor and the premotor cortex are both essential for what motion needs to be conducted to be successful. So a little different. Again, primary to the supplementary and premotor promote the motion. Somatosensory gives us a little bit of information, a little proprioception, which this is an open loop scale, so it's not a closed loop. So there's not as much feedback in this situation as there would be for other things, such as starting on a gun or a more time-oriented feedback. So that's, and the information travels from our spinal cord and efferent and afferent neurons to the muscles. So that's how the entire pathway would go. So we'd go from the primary, supplementary motor, have some somatosensory, interjection, that would make a little more sense to our body, hit that spinal cord, ride the neurons to the muscles, and complete a fluid motion. So again, here's our breakdown of why the pitching motion was an open loop control system. So there's not a lot of conscious thought in the execution of the skill. The information sent in one message to the working muscles. I couldn't alter his motion during execution of a pitch. I couldn't say, hey, speed your arm up while he's throwing. It's just not, it's not viable. He can't make an adjustment fast enough because the motion's so quick. So there's not a reaction time in this motion. It's a, okay, let me get out of my own way and conduct the movement. And I think Dyer did a really good job with that when I just said, hey, don't think about it, throw as hard as you can. So a throw was completed whenever our novice was comfortable. There wasn't a feedback for initiation. All the information he needed was just in front of him, throw as hard as you can. So the reason this is open loop, again, just for further proof, would be it requires aiming, multiple limb coordination, gross body coordination, single leg balance, trunk stability, explosive strength, rotational strength. It's a gross body movement that requires a lot of specificity that we can't adjust by talking to him. I couldn't say, hey, speed up here, slow down here. He has to kind of figure it out on his own, which is kind of a beautiful thing about the pitch. His body has to organize that way on its own. So that is why we have an open loop control system for the pitch. So we use a Fitz and Posner model for stage of learning, which breaks down into the cognitive stage, associative stage, and autonomous stage. Again, cognitive stage with a lot of talking and interaction. I was like, hey, here's how you throw a fastball, don't throw curveballs. Let's get you an easy fluid motion, the very basics. So showed him something similar to this, which is phases. Wasn't trying to blend them, just one at a time. Weren't expecting a lot of accurate or fast strikes. We're focused more on how he's moving. So not like perfect condition, but better place to start. So at the associative stage, we start seeing a little more effort, a little more intent. So we see a little more accuracy, a little more speed. I wouldn't say compete in games exactly, but again, if, for example, if this is where we would see him becoming a little more competitive against your average Joe, someone who maybe doesn't hit all the time. Again, we're looking for novice success, not, him becoming an MLB pitcher, which I thought he did an amazing job and progressed super quick. And I know Trey also mentioned that he thought he moved very well, again, with his natural athleticism. It showed when we were trying to teach him the motion. We never got to the autonomous stage. Again, that's a very difficult place for anybody to get to when it comes to a skill. So confidently pitching, understanding the signs, lingo, everything. We didn't open that can of worms per se. Because again, that's the most complex portion of pitching. It's an art. And at that point, it's becoming an art form, but I was very impressed that he was able to get to the associative stage so quickly. Finally, our transfer of learning adjustments. So we used weighted baseball throws, water ball throws, and med ball tosses and slams. So if he was performing a static position, we introduced weighted baseballs. So his arm just kind of had to get used to different weights and had to stabilize, to promote those healthy failures for balance. So just for a couple of examples of how we would use them. So if he's stepping down the mound without a ball, we would use a water ball, which I'll show on a later slide. It kind of moves around, has water in it, helps his core stabilize, makes him stabilize. To create a more fluid motion, we added a med ball throw to the end of the motion, which helps kind of clean up his deficiencies at the end, so he can throw with full intent and not have to worry about where the pitch is going. Just kind of smooth over those rough edges of that cognitive stage and get him more to that associative stage with learning. So there was a lot less intent when it came to hitting a target. It was more how smooth and clean can you move and get that ball in the ground hard. All right, apologize. Back to our presentation. Didn't want to lose the recording. So the weighted ball throws helps to make the arm adapt to different weights, promotes necessary failure and accelerated timing. So those are our transfer of learning adjustments. Okay. So our knowledge of results and performance, this is what we want to dive into now. So professional pitching, I really did not want to set the bar crazy high for him because I didn't want him to be nervous about, I don't want him to get in his own head because again, it's an open loop system anyway. The less thinking is more success in this case. So most professional pitchers are 60% strikes. That's a feat. The best pitcher in baseball, Clayton Kershaw, has a 63% strike percentage. And that's astonishingly impressive at their level and very effective. So we didn't want Dyron to be discouraged by a 20 to 50% strike percentage because that's outside of this sport and skill, that seems like a bad. If you were 20% successful at racing, it wouldn't be a very good race. Yeah, wouldn't be a great racer. So we wouldn't want that problem to occur. So again, want to set the bar low. If he threw 20% strikes, we're happy. The next time he threw 30% strikes, we were ecstatic. So celebrate our victories where we could. We didn't want him to be worried about moving pitches in and out or like using sliders, changeups, changing speeds. We were looking for fastballs, no movement, how quick we get to the zone. That's the performance you wanted. Again, hunting strike zone percentage. That's it in this case. Finally, again, we didn't want him to lose motivation. I wanted him to understand it's a very difficult motion and it's hard to do effectively. So, and it's a movement of failure, and keeping a positive outlook for him was essential. I think he did a really great job. We were laughing and having a good time the whole time. And he seemed to really enjoy learning this motion. So here are our practice conditions. So I was able to get access to the entire bullpen. We conducted the practice on warmer days with weather, just to keep it consistent. He felt better, a little more confidence going into the training. So it'd be a little more positive experience. We conducted the practice throws here on the turf mat. It's still sloped. So this is sloped, this is flat. These are the two mounds on both sides to prevent clay dig out. So again, if you throw a lot here on either side of here, you're going to start losing your footing. And again, that's a whole other problem that we didn't want to introduce. So to limit trial variability, just had him throw off this into this 9 pocket for all the ones we were looking for strike percentage. So baseball here, you would throw it down right to here. So here's that water ball we were talking about. So when it moves around, as you can see, there's water pulling in it. So as you shake it, it moves and shakes you around. So you have to coordinate and balance to throw. So that's how we were able to perturbate the system a little bit and make it a little more robust through a smooth movement. Same thing with the med ball throws. Again, here are our weighted balls ranging from 2 ounces to 16 ounces. For retrospective baseballs, about 5 ounces. So up and down. This is the full bullpen. Again, strike zone, mound, flat ground to throw off of. There's a net back here, so a little wider target. Kind of take the pressure off really missing this. Again, he's a novice. So last thing one was him getting nervous. And that's about the full extent of our practice conditions. Thank you. This has been Team 3's presentation on the motor skill of baseball pitching. Again, Dyron Brown was our novice, Trey Greenwood was our observer, and I'm Christian Cassidy, the expert of the team. Thank you. Have a great night.